Okay, welcome everyone to the July 1st Kubernetes SIG Apps meeting. My name is Adnan Abdul Hussain and I'll be our host today. We also have Janet Kuo and Matt Farina on as co-hosts. So the first thing we have here as an announcement is obviously this Thursday is the 4th of July. So obviously a big holiday in the US. And we imagine that a lot of people will be kind of off the following Monday. So does it make sense to cancel next week's Monday as a result of that?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I think given the lights went out today as well. Sorry, Thomas.
I was just saying it sounds good to me as well. There are some holidays in Europe as well.
Oh, cool. Okay. Okay. Sounds like we should cancel then. Great. Okay, and then with that, we can move on to the discussions here. So the first one, Matt, I think you put this down about CRD management. Do you want to take that?
Certainly. So we have CRDs can be used for a whole bunch of things. And a lot of times we think of them as a cluster extension. But one of the ways people are starting to use them is in the way they deploy and run applications, such as operators. And so here's the use case I have in mind. You have two people with two entirely separate namespaces who don't know about each other, and each of them installs an operator, say MySQL or Postgres or something like that. It's the same one using the same CRD. Now you've got the one CRD and two who really don't know about each other. One of them wants to upgrade, and you might do things like change the store version, things like that. How do you handle the case of managing these differences? What are the rules? What do we tell people to do? How do we explain this?
I would start by do not do this because to install a CRD, you have to be cluster admin, which basically means, well, you probably install this just once if you are the one installing it.
Certainly. And so this is a real world problem of go install it and you get somebody with cluster admin to do it. And then, for example, you've got one operator who upgrades their operator and they need a new version of the CRD. In order to do that, maybe they went from V1 to V2 or V1 alpha 1 to V1 beta 1, and you still got somebody else using the V1 alpha 1. How does this work? And this is something people are trying to do, and it's a real world problem, and there's no guidance on it.
I think one of the issues. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. I was trying to understand how you can manage to install two of those. Like if you are installing the second one, you will not be able to create the CRD because it will already exist, which should probably be the pointer that it is already installed in the cluster. And those are cluster-wise. This is not a controller per user. This is controller per cluster. Because CRDs are.
Yep.
So I'm trying to figure out how you get into that situation because you can't install it twice because
you don't install the CRD twice. You end up having two people who have operators dependent on the same CRD who aren't really paying attention to each other.
Yeah, and they have to ignore the failure to install their CRD because it's already there.
They do. And tools, for example, how does the CRD get installed? Is it a tool that silently ignores?
Okay, I lost you. I'm not sure if the others heard you.
Sorry.
I think you could operate for us there.
Yeah, so to restate, consider the case where you use a tool that installs the CRD for you and it silently ignores that it's already there and doesn't tell you. That's a possibility. In fact,
We lost you again, Matt.
hopefully can give people guidance on what to do, because if there isn't any guidance on how to handle this, then people are going to do a lot of things that we may not be ready for and get themselves into trouble.
I think you cut out for most of that, Matt, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was for me as well.
Sorry. So let me restate this. So say people are asking for tools that may silently ignore if it's already there and just keep running, right? That's something we have had asked for over on Helm. Silently ignore if the CRD is already there and just install the code base and keep going. So you can install something more than once and not run into that error. Handling things in ways that may not be optimal and trigger warnings to people is a request. People are trying to route around these problems. So what advice do we give people? What guidance do we give people on what they should and shouldn't do? Or
You cut out again.
Yeah, but I think I mostly heard you, at least the part before you start asking for the advice. That was clear to us. I don't know. At the current state, CRDs are not multi-tenant. They are meant just for cluster admin, which kind of means not multi-tenant. If you are having a tool like Helm to install it, you have probably given cluster admin rights to every person on the cluster using Helm, which is probably not a good thing, I guess, at all. But
I think partly the problem is there isn't really a good way to, I guess, distribute and install operators today, other than a tool like just using something like Helm, or just, installing a set of manifests using kubectl. And oftentimes that's usually done by developers, especially in the case of Helm, that just want to install things in their namespace. And you can easily run into these kind of conflicts as a result.
yeah. And so if we don't tell people or give them guidance on what to do or where they could, get into trouble, then they're going to run into it, and they're already asking to route around the warnings and errors that are there, and there's no guidance. And I don't think we expected people to use them quite the way they do. So what do we do with what they are doing and the problems they're getting into? Do we say you shouldn't do that? Or do we say nothing at all and then they keep doing it?
yeah, I'm not sure there is a good answer to a question. But like,
I couldn't think of one, which is why I came here to ask somebody else.
like currently CRDs are meant for extending the cluster with resources. And that means on the cluster level, like I own the cluster, I'm going to add this resource there. They are not meant for a user who is not cluster admin and basically a developer or a tool that the developer uses to be expanding the cluster, because you are trying to make it multi-tenant and you are ignoring the privileges that are constrained for the CRDs. I know people are doing it. I don't have a better answer than you shouldn't be doing it. You are ignoring all the security RBAC restrictions that are there, and it's not meant to be used that way. But I get your concerns. I just don't have a better answer, I guess.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Tomas here. I think I think CRDs and much like cluster role bindings and other cluster scope resources are a ops level concern, and I don't know if there's a place that we can document how we expect people to manage CRDs. Maybe that's something that could live in the Kubernetes documentation.
So that's what I was going to say. There's nothing communicating this now, and I think that's a problem. Right? If you don't say anything, people will just do wherever they want to go. And I'm not aware of any guidance on this. At one point, there was something in a mailing list that I was on that thread, and I would probably have trouble finding that item again. It's not clear what we tell people. All right, so it sounds like an action is we probably need to work with API machinery and document some of this. And since I'm the one who's asking, I can take that action.
Yep, I don't think you get a better answer from us than this. So this sounds good to me.
Yeah, sounds good to me as well.
And the usual advice, if you are not a cluster admin, use a config map. But
That doesn't work for all the operators out there.
well, yeah, operators are cluster level resources.
Yeah,
By
actually, I'd
using
say use a
CRDs.
secret, but yeah, same idea.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Matt. I think it's definitely a good problem that we should look towards solving. So yeah, and I think documentation is probably a good answer right now to the question. Okay, if there's nothing else on that, we can move on. So I wanted to give a quick update on Kubernetes 1.15. So that was released last week. And some of the features from the SIG Apps side, so around pod disruption budget, there's now support for custom resources. And also the immutability has been relaxed, so it's now possible to mutate PDBs. And then there was also a fix for the incorrect proc mount defaulting that was introduced in 1.12.
What does PDB supporting CRDs mean? Or did I got that wrong?
So Janet can probably speak more to this, but I think the idea is that it can look up the status spec of CRs, custom resources, and use that to determine whether pods should be evicted. Is that correct, Janet?
Yeah, this is correct.
Okay. Yeah.
So before this, it would work for kind of the core resources, the core workloads, but now
Right.
it can extend to custom resources as well.
But you would have to, yeah, I mean, if there is any documentation link, that would help. Because
Yeah.
every CRD is different, right? So how would PDB know? That's why I'm confused.
Yeah, let me try to see if there's any documentation on this.
So I made that change. So it only supports PDBs that implement the scale sub-resource. So that's how it works. It accesses the number of replicas through the scale sub-resource. And that's how it can support custom resources and not just the built-in.
So if the CRD supports scale sub-resource, then?
Yeah, so it only works if the CRD implements the scale sub-resource.
Got it, okay. Cool, sounds good.
Sure.
Thanks, Morten. Cool, any other questions on the 1.15 features?
Yeah, since I see the perk mount figs here, it reminded me we should probably sync, well, next time we cancel, but maybe the time after that, we should probably sync on, it's the case of mutating admission, basically, which Janet had the doc for, which we should probably talk for a long-term fix. So the spurious rollout don't happen again. Well, they are happening now for mutating admissions, but this was an instance of it. So we should probably sync in the future on a long-term solution.
Yeah, agreed. Is that something that we should put on the agenda for next time we meet?
Yeah, and we should probably think that most of us, like the approvers, will be on that meeting because this will be a significant change to how we do rollouts. So yeah, let's put it on the agenda and like say we can attend this time and we can talk about it.
Sounds good. Okay.
So sorry,
Because there are PTOs and stuff, so it's probably
Yeah.
better to think.
Sounds a little difficult, but yeah.
So what are we talking about mutating web apps? Sorry, I couldn't follow.
Oh, okay. So for those who don't know about it, if there is a mutating admission that actually changes the pod spec, like the controller sees the pod spec is something and mutating admission adds a field there, the resources that actually compare, hey, I think deployment has revision. Well, anyways, say you are a resource, a deployment or stateful set or whatever, and you compare your say a replication controller spec to what the pod is, they will differ, and you will think you need to trigger another rollout because the mutating admission changed the pod before it was created.
Right.
So I think Demon set has this issue. I think deployment don't have it, but I'm not actually sure at this point. Janet would know probably.
Oh, so there's a fix needed in the deployment controller or daemon set controller to take care of that. Is that what you're saying?
I think we need to generally decide on an approach on which we should trigger rollouts in all the workloads controllers.
Yeah, I collect a document for the details of the problem and all the possible fixes that we can do. I put the link in the chat and I'll put it in the agenda as well.
Cool. Thanks, Janet.
Great, thanks. I added the discussion topic for that for the July 15th. Does that capture it correctly?
Yeah, that sounds good. We will link Janet's doc there and people will know what this is about.
Sounds good. Okay. Janet, did you want to talk about the TTL controller?
Yeah. Let me share my screen. Can you all see?
Yep.
So I think in 1.12 we introduced this new feature and it's still alpha today. And the feature is about how we garbage collect jobs. So if you have something like a script that keeps creating jobs and eventually you want to somehow clean it up. And today there's no easy way to clean it up. And so this feature is to allow you to set a TTL in your jobs so that you can have it cleaned up after it's either complete or failed after some time. So I have a cap here, and it's in SIG Apps. And then I want to bring this feature to beta. So I'm looking for contributions to help me bring this feature to beta. And I also want to introduce this feature to finished pods as well. And the code is pretty simple. It's under Kubernetes package controller TTL after finished. And the controller code is about 300-ish lines. So I can, if anyone wants to help, I can review the code or do whatever guide that you may need. And that's pretty much it.
Janet, is there a list of issues that need to be resolved before this goes to beta?
Yeah, I put a bunch of things here for I think I put the how to implement finished pods here as well. So basically one of the things that I want to implement with this feature is to implement the send feature for pods as well, and also figure out whether we want to put this field in spec or in metadata. And so the criteria for putting it in metadata is that if we want to support this feature for CRDs, then we probably want to put it in metadata. Or if we think that this is a feature that only jobs and pods need, then we'll just put it in spec. So basically it, and I have some more details for the design in this cap.
Is this currently only implemented for job?
Yeah, it is.
And you want to move the job implementation to beta, or first do the pod? Because the graduation criteria says we should decide if we want to do it for customer services before promoting to beta.
Yeah, so that's part of the graduation criteria for moving to beta.
Yeah, what I'm thinking is we should probably decide first and then move it to beta.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And yeah, from what I recall, I like the general approach with metadata stuff, because you could set it for any resource. Say, hey, here's my whatever replication controller, whatever secret you want, and I want it to last, well, say a week, because this is my testing stuff, and we'll get cleaned up.
Yeah, I like that idea. It could also be applied to namespaces and other resources, so you could have a short-lived namespace for like testing.
Yeah, that as well. But then you will have to figure out, because this is currently based on the condition that the pod is finished. So how do you solve it for the resources that don't have that condition? So there has to be some mechanism for the user to specify on what condition to do it. And I guess it gets tricky at that point.
Yeah, originally this proposal is for those resources like secrets and config maps. I'm thinking you can set a TTL after those resources are not referenced or used by any other resources. But that requires basically something like a reverse owner reference. I proposed this to API machinery, and they have some concern about the scalability.
Yeah, I recall the discussion about the garbage collector. Yeah. I think it was it. Yeah, there were some concerns about reversing the reference order, which had, well, some not pleasant side effects. So maybe the real answer is to start small as you did. So I don't know. I wonder what the other opinions are on the matter.
Or we can simply just use the TTL for like creation timestamp for the resources like secrets and config maps. That's not as useful, but it will be much simpler to implement.
Yeah, it'd be a simpler implementation. So just for pods and jobs use, or like maybe for certain workloads to actually have some more interesting check, but for other general resources, just use the time after the creation date.
Yeah, that's how we would phrase it. But when you start writing the code that is generally handling all resources, and for some user, it may start doing unexpected stuff for pods, like say, hey, I want to remove my pods after 1 hour, no matter if it's finished or not. And if you specify it in metadata and you say, hey, delete this resource after TTL, and you have a field name like that, I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm saying the API won't be as easy as one field within time, probably.
Yeah.
Because of the genericity. And if you have CRD similar to what job is, you probably want some kind of condition there. And so, yeah, maybe we just start simple, but
Yeah.
I guess that's what you were proposing at the start, right? Just do pods and jobs,
Yeah.
because yeah, I think this could get out of hand, like doing is generic, although I like it, but
Could there be a case for two different fields? So one is TTL seconds after finish, and that's just for pods and jobs. And then you could have TTL seconds after create for everything else.
yeah, I guess it could, and this probably makes it two distinct features since they
Yeah.
are specified in one in metadata and one in put spec,
Mhm.
and you will handle it differently as well. So I guess making this for work for pods and then promoting it to beta when that's stable. I guess that sounds good to me, and we can address the generic case in the metadata probably if it comes to it.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think focusing on the pod implementation first and then taking that to beta and then considering the generic case afterwards sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. So
Hey, I'm an aspiring Kubernetes contributor, and I would like to help with this proposal, Janet.
oh,
Great.
thanks.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I'll keep in touch after the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe you can connect offline and sounds good. Great. Okay, anything else on that, Janet? If not, we can move to open discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have anything to bring up for open discussion?
Yeah, this is Mayank. I'm still waiting for Max unavailable feedback. So Janet, if you could take a look and like suggest some approaches there. So I have 4 or 5 approaches there. I saw you made some comments, but if you could also like make a suggestion on which you think are better, that would help a lot. I want to do some work on it in the 1.16 timeframe.
Okay. I'll take a look.
Cool, thanks a lot. I had one more question. So,
Sure.
related to the proposal. So my understanding is that the pod management policy, right, which is parallel or non, what I don't remember what the other option is, but it only applies to creation of stateful set, deletion, and the scale operation, right? It has nothing to do with rolling update. Is that understanding correct?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
a
so
understanding.
sorry, I didn't hear it. Is that correct, you said?
Oh yeah, it's correct.
Okay. The reason I was bringing it up was because Max unavailable, the way I was approaching is that I want to make it only work for rolling updates, because that's the whole reason. Like, we want to make rolling updates go faster for stateful sets, which can support that. So my understanding is that I actually really don't care whether it works for the pod management policy case or not. But if you all think that that should also be supported, yeah, please comment and see. I think my basic understanding is that I don't really see a need for Max unavailable to be supported for those cases. Cool, that's it.
Cool, thanks, Mike. Anything else? Okay, sounds like we can get 25 minutes back to our day. Thanks everyone for joining, and as we said, next week we won't be meeting, but we'll be meeting again on the 15th.
Thanks.
Take care,
Okay.
everyone.
Bye.